Welcome to this rapid revision session on the Strategic Hamlets program. This is all linked in with Kennedy's approach to Vietnam. By 1961, JFK was president and Viet Cong attacks had become a serious threat, and Diem wasn't coping. There were over 12,000 Viet Cong fighters by this point, and half of South Vietnam was under at least partial communist control. If you want to find out more about the Viet Cong and their support, there's another rapid revision session on that. President Kennedy wanted a change of tactics. A. Use ARVN with US support to hunt for and destroy the Viet Cong. And B. To win over the hearts and minds of the villagers and pacify them. In other words, stop them being warlike and joining the Viet Cong. Here was one of the ways that he tried to do this, with strategic hamlets like this. This looks a little bit like a prison camp, with huts in the middle and walls to keep people out. Or is it in? Well, the thing is, it's not especially clear when you just look at it, and that was half of the problem. Those defensive walls and enclosures are supposed to keep these people safe from the Viet Cong, but that's not necessarily how they were perceived by people who were put into them. Let's find out a bit more. The Strategic Hamlets program worked like this. In 1962, Kennedy launched the Strategic Hamlets program. This was a plan where villagers would be moved into defended villages where they could be kept away from the influence of the Viet Cong. Although they were to be protected by ARVN soldiers, significantly these were coordinated and built under the supervision of 800 American Green Berets. This is the first major deployment of US troops, as American Green Berets are special forces who specialize in engineering. The plan was a failure. Leaflets dropped to encourage people into them couldn't be read by an illiterate population. Villagers didn't want to move into them, as this would involve abandoning their homes where their ancestors were buried. So why didn't the strategic hamlets succeed? Have a look at this. It gives us some clues and is a real diagram from the time. The hamlets were partially constructed by US Green Beret engineers, the first significant deployment of forces in Vietnam. So this was seen as another aspect of American meddling. The hamlets resembled prisons, even though the fences and towers were supposed to keep the VC out and not keep villagers in. But that's a small distinction when you're living in one. People didn't want to move home. Leaving them, that would have involved leaving the place of their ancestors, which had a special spiritual connection for many Buddhist Vietnamese. Many Vietnamese villagers were illiterate and couldn't understand or read or understand the leaflets explaining them. Unless you speak Vietnamese and read Vietnamese yourself, imagine you're looking at this image here. It's not entirely clear what is meant. Also, there was hatred of the program, and this undermined trust in the South Vietnamese government, which was already at a pretty low ebb. And also, hatred of the program drove people to join or support the Viet Cong. Basically, it achieved exactly the opposite of what it was designed to achieve. Some final points then. One of Kennedy's big ideas was the Strategic Hamlets program. This was launched in 1963 and it carried on under Johnson's administration. They were intended to prevent people from joining and supporting the Viet Cong and preventing the VC from threatening people. It mostly had the opposite effect. It was misunderstood, poorly executed, and only made people more mistrustful of the South Vietnamese government at a time when there was a lot of mistrust anyway. It also increased direct military involvement in Vietnam. And again, this was perceived by local people as being another example of American oppression and American meddling in something that they had no business doing. So the Strategic Hamlets program, possibly one of the biggest failures of the early stages of the Vietnam War. But this would have made the situation with search and destroy missions somewhat easier. But that's something for another time. Ultimately, it failed and it made matters worse. That's the end of this rapid revision session. I hope it's been useful to you, and if it has, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It all helps. Speaking of helping, if you've got something that you're desperate to revise and have me make a video on, please put your suggestion in the comments below. I'll see if I can act on it. Thanks very much, and goodbye.